Hi, everyone. We're going to go through a lot of the things that you're going to need to do to be successful in this class is the goal of this video. So we're going to jump right into it here. So the first thing you want to make sure you can do is log into the website. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably already got the email that tells you how to log into the website. So it should be super straightforward. But in case you ever get logged out of the website, I want to show you how to log back in. So if you get logged out, you always come onto the website, click on the online EMT course. And this is going to take you to a page that's going to make it look like you're not enrolled in the course. And that's just because you're logged out. So when you come to this page, it says it's closed, not enrolled. That's because you're not logged in. So when you come to this page, you just want to click on take this course. And then you'll type in your username or your email, which is your email address, and your password that you set up when you got the first video. Now, when you guys log in, when I log in, it takes me to a weird place because I run the website. But when you guys log in, it should take you right back to that online EMT courses page. So that's how you'll always log back in if you get logged out. Now on the website, basically there's learning modules, and they're going to go along with the workbook that you either picked up or that I mailed to you. I'll show you how to access that workbook later in this video, just in case you didn't get the physical workbook yet. But basically the website consists of a whole bunch of pre-recorded videos that you're going to watch and then answer questions in the workbook as you go along. Now these videos on the website, they require you to go in order. They require you to watch each video before you can move on to the next video. And after each video, there's typically a couple, I call it a checkpoint, and it's just a couple multiple choice questions to kind of make sure that sometimes they're to make sure you're paying attention. Sometimes the checkpoints actually cover things that I didn't even talk about in the video, but I realized, oh, I forgot to put that in, or it wasn't worth talking about, but I want to at least put it in a question to make sure I get that information across. I've also used those checkpoints as a place to give you valuable feedback on how to answer multiple choice questions. So you may not be a fan of multiple choice questions. I'm on the fence about them, but either way, multiple choice questions are going to be a huge part of this class. We don't really have a choice. And the reason for that is because at the end of the course, when you go to take your national registry exam to be certified as an EMT, it's all multiple choice. So my goal throughout this class is to get you prepared for those multiple choice questions as best I can. And I think the best way to do that is just to keep doing multiple choice questions continuously throughout the class. So you're basically used to them by the time you get to that final certification exam. So these checkpoint questions are going to be multiple choice. And in the feedback for those questions, I'll give you just like straight up test taking tips sometimes. And my goal there again is to kind of just get you ready for those multiple choice tests that you'll be taking regularly. So the checkpoints, they don't count for anything. They're just a learning experience. So if you don't know the answer, don't stress out. Like I said, sometimes I've literally put it in there because I know it's not something I talked about in the video. So as you go through those, you do want to make sure you actually read the explanation for each of those as you go through. So I'm going to show you what this looks like in a second. But one last thing I want to talk about with the learning modules, you know, they're basically embedded YouTube videos. So I know you can click through and actually not watch them. And that's going to be really counterproductive to you passing this class. So those videos are my lecture material that when the class was in person, those are all the things we talked about in class that I've now turned into videos. So what it really does is take that textbook that's over 1,000 pages. And the goal of my videos is to tell you, okay, now here's what you actually need to study and here's what you actually need to do. So that is where the videos come in and are really important that you actually watch through each of those videos. That being said, I have a timer on the website so I can see how much time you're spending on each topic and video. And if I have to, I can basically go in and check one box and make it to where you have to watch each video. And the reason I haven't done that is because it will also take away all the controls for the video. So you won't be able to pause it or go back or speed it up or slow it down in any way. So please don't make me do that. Spend the time actually watching the videos. They should be helpful for you. So it shouldn't be a hard thing for you to convince yourself to actually watch the videos. Okay. So looking at the website, when you're logged in, you'll come in and you'll see your name here, and that'll tell you that you're logged in. Now, you'll probably just see your courses will just be your online EMT course, and it'll kind of show you what you have done so far and things like that. So starting out with the class, you'll start with chapter 1. As I said, you'll have to start at the beginning. Now you can just click right on here, or you can click on expand and it'll show you all the topics that are in the chapter. For now, we'll just click on the actual chapter and that will take you to the online course. Okay, now in the course, you'll see now we have each of the sections or the topics listed. So we'll start with the first one, obviously. So we'll click on that. That's going to take you to a video. Now in the workbook that you have, you'll also see questions for 1.1. Those questions are going to closely align with this video. They'll usually be answered directly in the video. So here's your video. It's just a regular YouTube video that's been embedded. Once you click play, it'll start to play. Just like a regular YouTube video, you can skip through. You can go back if you need to hear something again. You can play and pause. If you click on this cog, you can go to this, change the speed. You can slow it down if I talk too fast for you, or you can speed it up if I'm talking too slow, or you want to move faster, or maybe you want to come back and watch a video a second time to review something. You can watch it at double speed. Okay, so that's the videos. You'll see me talking up in the corner, just like this video you're watching here. And yeah, kind of goes through everything you need to know. Now, once you finish the video, you'll notice a checkpoint will appear down here. Checkpoint, and this one goes with chapter 1.1. So when you open this up, it could be anywhere from 1 up to 10 multiple choice questions. Most sections are going to have a checkpoint. Now I'm going to purposely click on the wrong answer here so you can see what it looks like. Notice before you click the answer, occasionally there will be a hint. So if you see a hint, you might click on that if you're not sure what the right answer is, and it'll give you a little bit of a clue. Not very many of them have hints, but some of them do. Once you've selected your answer, you'll click check. Now you can see the correct answer is highlighted in green. The incorrect answer is highlighted in red. Now down here is where the information that is really important is going to be located. So just make sure you always come down here and read the feedback. These are things I've specifically typed in to each question that I want you to know. So it took me a lot of time to type all these in, and I promise I wasn't just trying to waste time. So there's a ton of information that you're going to find at the end of all these. And like I said, a lot of times it's going to be either something we didn't talk about in the video that you do need to know, something I really want to emphasize, or just straight up test taking tips like, oh, you can eliminate this, this, and this answer because of these reasons. And that leaves you with the best answer, which is such and such. So always make sure you read through these as they'll be very helpful to you. Just click through so you can see what these look like. So you can see this one's a little longer. I have here, this feels like a tricky question. This is exactly what you're going to see on the National Registry. Multiple choice questions are tricky, and it kind of talks through how to pick the best answer. Once you've went through all the questions, you'll click finish checkpoint, and that will automatically take you to this page where you'll just click here to continue, which will take you right on to chapter 1.2, and you'll just continue to move through each of the sections this way. So there's 1.2, you can see the checkpoint at the bottom, and you just keep rolling through like that. Now, anytime you want to go back, you can hide this out of the way so you can see, or you can go back to the main website. Once we get there, we'll click on online EMT course again, and that'll take us right back to a list of all the chapters. But notice you did have a list of the chapters along the left-hand side of that last page as well. So if you look on, so once we log into the class, also over here on the left side, you can click around as well. Now, what you cannot do is skip ahead. So if you're on 1.1, you can't skip down here and watch 1.5. However, once you've watched all the chapter 1 videos, you can go back. So when you're ready to study for things, you can come back and watch any of the old videos that you've already seen. You can watch those again. Okay, so that's kind of the big things you need to know about moving through the website. And you will have that workbook that goes along with it. Like I said, some people, the questions will be answered in the videos that go along with the workbook. So we'll talk a little bit more about how the workbook and the videos play off together when I give you some tips about how to be successful in the class. Okay, website resources. So something you're going to want to come back to over and over on the website is that at the bottom of the page, there's a list of resources that you're going to find very useful throughout the class. So you want to make sure if you're in this mode, you need to go back to the regular class where you can see this orange background. This is where you'll find the resources. So you're going to scroll past every lesson in the class all the way to the bottom. And one of the last things that you'll see before you get to the reviews. So once you get down here where it's a blue background and you see the reviews, over on this left-hand side, you'll see a list of course resources. These things are all going to be very useful to you. So we have a Google Drive link that has a ton of stuff in it. This is a link where you can schedule a Zoom meeting with me. If you ever want to schedule a meeting, you click on this, it takes you to a calendar that shows my availability. You click on schedule a meeting with Danielle, and it sends us both a Zoom link. It just makes it really easy for us to meet up anytime you have a question and you want to discuss it. There's also a group meeting spreadsheet. We'll use this when we all meet in person to plot when we're going to be meeting. So we'll come back to that. And then the skills you're going to do at the end of the class or whenever you come in person to do that stuff, these are videos of those skills. So if I say go to the YouTube playlist and study the skills, they're both linked right here. So the thing you'll use here the most probably is this Google Drive link. So let's take a look at what all's in that Google Drive. And these are all just a bunch of shared files that I've shared with you. So you can see the first folder is applying for an EMT license. This is after the class is completed, but it's just one thing that's there for you. NR EMT skills you're going to use a lot. So inside this NR EMT skills folder, you'll find there's actually the actual skill sheets. So these are all the skill sheets you'll be graded with. You'll also see in this folder, Matt is one of our helpers with the class, and he made just kind of a handwritten guide to the medical assessment where he really broke down every little step, and a lot of the students like that. So I put it in here for you all. There's some scenarios you can use. So when you get ready to practice medical assessments, I'll remind you how to find this, but these are just some made up scenarios so you can give it to somebody and they can be your pretend patient. Okay, in addition to the skills, here are the PowerPoints. So you saw in 1.1, there was a PowerPoint and I was talking beside of it. All of those raw PowerPoints that I used to make the videos are all in this folder. So they're all just organized by chapter. You can go to each chapter and have the PowerPoint. I don't think you'll necessarily need those for anything, but sometimes students ask me for them. So they are there if you'd like to use them for whatever purpose. Okay, now the guided notes workbook. If you have not received your guided notes workbook in the mail yet, or you haven't been able to pick one up, or you would just prefer to handwrite your answers, this is where you'll find the guided notes workbook. So I'll open it so you can see what it looks like. Now, if you just double click on it like that, it's not going to let you download it. It's not going to save your progress. You need to actually download it. Or, you know, it's come to my attention lately that Adobe won't let you save and open and resave a second time. So if you want to save your progress and just type all your answers into this workbook, I recommend taking the workbook and actually opening it in either Microsoft Edge if you have a Windows computer, or opening it in, I think it's called Apple Preview if you have a Mac computer. So just use the Microsoft Edge browser or open it with Apple Preview, and that will allow you to actually save your progress and then open in the file again and continue as we move through the class. So this first page is hyperlinked. I think I have to actually download it for it to be able to work that way. So I'll download it here. So you'll just click on, you know, you can put your name right here on the first page, and then say we're in chapter 1, you'll click on that and it'll take you right to chapter 1. And then each of the questions, you can just type your answers right in here, and then just save it and reopen it next time to continue your answers. One thing you might want to do while you have this open right now is take note that if you have a physical book, some of them have been updated, some have not. The score for the medical and traumas is actually supposed to be 42 points instead of 30 and 40. That changed a while back, and some of these books were a little bit older before that changed. So just make sure the score, instead of 30, make that a 42, and instead of 40, make that a 42. Yours might already be updated that way. Okay, let's see what else is in the Google Drive folder that we might need. So this is just the things that are at the very end of the guided notes workbook. It's separate from the fillable one, but it's all the skill sheets and a couple of resources you might need. If you want to record a Zoom meeting or set up a Zoom meeting with one of your classmates, this video will show you how to do that. And then the calendar for the class, this is the in-person class. So if you live locally and you wanted to come in for a night of class, you can check out the calendar here. Just send me an email and make sure it's okay if you come in, because sometimes we have extra rooms, sometimes we don't. Just kind of depends on the night and how many people are in the class at the time. And then there's the online class calendar, and that's going to be the calendar that's going to tell you when every quiz is due, when the midterm is, everything like that. So just always come to this one and make sure that it's labeled for your class. A lot of times I have 2 classes going on. So just make sure if it says online class calendar, and then it'll say like, usually whichever month your class starts in. So if your class starts in February, it'll say February online class calendar. So just make sure you're clicking the right one. And then I'll remind you of this when we get closer to the midterm, but there's also a video and a PowerPoint that Matt put together that will help you review for the midterm. So he just kind of went through all the material and all the important things you want to make sure you study. I think it's about an hour long or so to get you ready for that midterm. So that's there. I'll remind you of that when we get closer. So this is what JB Learning is. If you have that access code in the back of your textbook, you'll just click right here on redeem code, put your access code in and create your own account and log in. Once you're logged into this account, you'll see our textbook here, Emergency Care and Transportation of the Sick and Injured. So click on the textbook. This will now take you to this this page. This is the hardest part. Make sure you click on Launch Open Enrollment Course. We don't have an instructor-led course or a course ID for this website. We're just going to do Open Enrollment Course, and this will get us to all the resources. Now, once you're here, you see all the chapters listed out. So like if you click on chapter 1, for example, it'll give you all the resources for chapter 1. Now there's a lot of stuff here, but there's very little that I find to be very useful. The most useful thing here is probably the audiobook. So if you have the textbook, You might be thinking, well, what do I need the audiobook for? I have the textbook. Well, I have had students use it in different ways. If you are a busy person and you're thinking, I am not going to have time to read 1,000 pages over the next 9 weeks, maybe you have a job or a task where you can listen to your audiobook while you multitask. So, it's a good thing to use while you're driving long distances. If you spend a lot of time, walking your dog or jogging or doing things like that, where you can listen to podcasts or books. Or, if you have a job where you at work, you can listen to these kind of things, or cleaning house, anything you can do where you can multitask and listen. That would be one way you could use it, is you could use it in place of reading the book. Another way I've had students use it is if you are reading the book and you get distracted a lot and you kind of forget what you're reading and have to go back and read it again. It seems like if you play the audiobook out loud while you read along, that seems to be a good way to kind of help you keep focused on what you're reading. And then the last use of the audiobook, I've had a student tell me that what he would do is download the audiobook and then play it on faster speed, like 2 times, and then read along, and he could read and listen faster than he could read alone or listen alone. So I'm not sure if I recommend that for everybody, but it is a tool that you might be able to use for some of the chapters or for some of you. Try it out at least and see how it works. Their flashcard lesson is pretty garbage. I'm going to talk a little bit later about suggesting you make flashcards. This software is just not very good. It basically tells you the definition and you type in the word. They're all in alphabetical order. You can't really go back and study the ones you don't know and stuff like that. So I really recommend using physical paper flashcards. Comprehensive slides and focus slides. These are the PowerPoints that I used when I first started the class, and I've modified them down. I don't think you'll need these for anything, but if you wanted to, they're here. Now the lecture outlines they've just taken the PowerPoint and made it into an outline. So again, pretty much just the audiobook is all you'll find on JV Learning. So it's not going to be a website you're required to log in, but if you do need it, there's the information. That audiobook can be helpful, as I said. Okay, so how to be successful in the class. I've kind of showed you how the website works and everything. So right now you might be feeling a little overwhelmed about, okay, so where do I start? What do I do? Well, this is kind of my recipe for success, if you will, that I suggest everyone does, to just make sure you're covering all the material in the right order and everything like that. So I would start each chapter by reading the chapter. That's why I've asked you to read the first couple chapters before the class even starts, because that's always going to be your first step, is just read the chapter. The chapters are very thorough. They go through everything. When you read the chapters, you don't have to spend a bunch of time taking notes or anything. We'll take care of that when we get to the videos. Just read it so you have that first exposure to the material and kind of that more deep, okay, we're going to talk about every little detail, and a lot of it will sink in and a lot of it won't on that first reading. But just go through and read and or listen to each chapter. Then you're going to log into the website, and there is a video and for each topic. And then you also have your guided notes workbook. So as you go through each of those topic videos, I would suggest having your guided notes workbook out, pause the video, write down the answers when you hear the answers to the questions. Students do that in different ways. What I would not suggest doing is using your textbook to answer the questions in the guided notes workbook, because the textbook will really have long-winded answers. And then you'll watch my video and go, oh, she just wanted 2 words for that answer. So it'll be a lot easier if you answer the guided notes workbook alongside the video. Some people will, like I said, pause the video, write the answers as soon as they hear them. Some people read through the questions and try to answer them just from what they learned from reading before they watch the videos. Some people will watch the entire video, then try to answer the guided notes workbook question, and then go back to the video to make sure they got the answers correct. Whatever you think works best for your learning style is totally fine with me. Like I said, though, you will get those answers mostly from the videos. Okay. Once you've filled out your guided notes workbook for that chapter, you're going to want to make note cards for vocabulary words and anything else you think you might need to study a little bit more from that chapter. So the first few chapters, you'll notice when you look on the website that I have actually included a video of the important vocabulary words that you'll need to know. So like for chapter 1, the very last part of chapter 1 is just chapter 1 vocabulary. And so that's just a video that I made saying, hey, here are the important vocabulary words you need to know. Make sure you know these. So you'll just see it right there at the end. And there's a little question after it, and then medical assessment, something else we're going to learn. But anyways, chapter 1 vocabulary will tell you exactly what you need to make note cards for. And I've done that for the first few chapters. And then at a certain point, I'm like, okay, they have the idea. Just continue to keep making those note cards, vocabulary words, but also anything from your guided notes workbook that you're thinking, oh, I need to spend some more time on that. Make a note card for it so you can come back and study it that way as well. Okay. So now that you've read the chapter, you've watched the video and filled out your guided notes workbook, and you've made note cards for vocabulary words and anything else you need to study, Well, now it's time to study all that material you put together. So go back to your guided notes workbook, study that, go back and study your flashcards, and then you'll be ready to actually take the quiz. Now, quizzes are due 3 times a week, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at midnight. Sometimes people ask, which time zone is it on? I'm not that strict. Basically it needs to be finished that night. If it's an hour later because you're on Pacific time, that's not going to be the end of the world. So, but that's when those are due, by the end of the day, wherever you are, on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. You can always take the quizzes early. If you want to take a quiz early, it's just going to be, the quizzes are embedded right on the website, and you can take those at any time as long as they're before the deadline. So I'll show you what that looks like on the website. So here you can see, so we had chapter 1. Let me just minimize it so it'll make it a little easier to see. So you go through all those chapter 1 videos. I'm over here on the left side. Then you'll go through all those chapter 2 videos. Then you notice the very next thing is chapter 1 and 2 quiz. And I try to put on here when it's due for you, due Wednesday. If you ever have any doubts, the calendar is always the best thing to look at. The calendar will tell you exactly when it's due, but this is due Wednesday at midnight. So after you finish chapter 1 and chapter 2, it will let you go to chapter 1 and 2 quiz. And instead of there being a video for the chapter 1 and 2 quiz, there will be this little login page that's going to pop up because the quiz is embedded right into the website. So you'll just click on here, enter your email address and have a password, click start, and it'll just take you through the quiz. So when you do these quizzes, remember the checkpoints are just after each video. Those don't really matter for much. These formal quizzes matter a lot. So, if you fail the quiz or something like that, I'm not going to kick you out of the class. I know some EMT classes do that. I don't do that. But the quizzes just kind of give you a measure of where you're at with chapter 1 and chapter 2. If you don't do well in the quiz, that kind of tells you, okay, I might need to go back and study chapter 1 and chapter 2 again. What did I not learn? What do I need to know? So when you're taking this quiz, all of these quizzes that are embedded in the class this way, make sure you're doing these without any notes, without any resources, and you're taking it like a real quiz. When you get to the midterm and the final, you can have a blank piece of paper out to write notes down as you go, but you have to start without any notes or anything like that. So take this as you would the midterm or the final, so you can prepare yourself to be ready for that. So just make sure you're doing this without any notes or anything. Now, right after the chapter 1 and 2 quiz, you'll notice there's a topic called quiz reflections. This is a video you'll see appear only one time in the course, but it's something that's required for every quiz. So after each quiz, I'm going to require you to do quiz reflections. And this video will explain exactly what quiz reflections are and how to do them. But as you can see from the thumbnail here, basically you're going to go through each question that you missed, explain why you picked your original answer, explain how you know that your new answer is correct, and then tell me what you learned. And the goal of these quiz reflections is to have something to study when you come back to study for the midterm. So when you go back to chapters 1 and 2, you don't have to start from scratch. You can just go straight to your quiz reflections. And those are the things that you need to spend the most time studying. The quiz reflections can just be emailed to me. And I don't have like specific due dates for the quiz reflections listed anywhere, but essentially you want to send me your quiz reflections definitely before you take the next quiz. And I would suggest sending me the quiz reflections, if you can, before you even start on those next chapters. That way, chapter 1 and 2 is in the books and you're done, and then you can move on to chapter 3 and 4. Now, sometimes I know people get a little bit behind. If you need to turn them in late so you can have extra time, I would rather you do that than try to rush through them just to get something on paper and not get anything out of it. So the idea is that, okay, you didn't know it when you took the quiz, but just make sure that you know it now so you'll be ready when you see the same material again on the midterm. So this video will tell you a lot more about those, but those quiz reflections are essential as well. So just to recap, for each chapter, you're going to read the chapter first, then complete the videos along with the guided notes workbook, create flashcards for all the vocabulary words and anything else you need to study, go back and study those materials, the guided notes workbook and the flashcards, and then take your quiz online and then do quiz reflections on the questions that you missed, and then move on to the next chapter. And you just keep repeating this process throughout the class. Now, if you feel like you're doing everything on this list and you're still not being successful in the class, that's when it's really good to reach out to me and let me know, hey, I feel like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do and I'm still struggling. If you email me and say, hey, I'm just having a hard time, the first thing I'm going to say is, hey, are you reading every chapter before you watch the video? Are you studying your guided notes workbook? Are you studying your flashcards? Basically, everything you see here is the first thing I'm going to ask. Okay, so what's the time commitment on the class? We'll just kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming up with this calculation. Traditionally, before the class was online, when it was in person, it was 7 weeks long instead of 9 weeks long. We met 3 nights a week from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. So almost 4 hours. And so that was, about 12 hours a week, 10 to 12 hours a week that we were meeting. And I turned all of those lectures into videos. So you can expect about 10 to 12 hours per week of those videos that we looked at. So that's just the videos and filling out the workbook, 10 to 12 hours. In addition to that, we know you need to read the chapter before you do those modules, and you need to study what you learned from the videos and from the workbook and from the note cards to prepare for the quizzes. So altogether, I put that as about 20 hours per week. This is, of course, just a rough estimate, and everybody's different. I know I have students that are speed readers and fly through everything, and they only spend 10 hours a week. Some of them are successful, some of them are not. I know I have some students that spend 30 or 40 hours a week because they can, and they want to make sure they really know this material. You do what works for you. 20 hours a week is just kind of what my rough estimate is. Now, that being said, 20 hours a week is a lot better spent doing 3 hours each day, or something along those lines, versus, oh, I'm going to sit down on Saturday and Sunday and crank out 10 hours each day. That's going to be really hard to absorb that much information in that short of a time. So, I know when I went through my EMT class as a student, I would sit down on Sunday and read all the chapters for the week. So I would sit down for maybe 8 hours on Sunday and just read and read and read with a couple breaks here and there, and get all the reading done. And then throughout the week, I could just focus on learning from, I was in an in-person class, but learning from the lectures. So for you all, that might mean, okay, I crank out 8 hours on Sunday, but then each day I only need to spend maybe an hour and a half, watching the videos, studying, and taking quizzes each day, doing quiz reflections. Those are the quiz. I cannot emphasize enough how important the quiz reflections are for the class. It really makes a huge difference, because if you don't know it on the quiz, it's not a big deal as long as you do your quiz reflection. But if you don't know it, you don't do your quiz reflection, well, when you get to the midterm, you're going to have the same problems coming back to haunt you. So my concerns with the class being online, I'm kind of worried that people might fall behind a little bit. So that's why we have a quiz every 2 days. These are on Wednesday night, Friday night, and Sunday night. So you can never be more than 2 days behind. And that's really just to help you. When I had the class in person, we had the quizzes at the start of each class, and they were a lot more rushed because they were on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So they were back to back after you just learned the material. So this way they're at least spread out to give you time to study. But you need to hold yourself accountable and hold your group accountable. If you notice somebody in your group's been slacking and not showing up, send them a text or an email or give them a call and say, hey, is everything okay? Do we need to change our meeting time? Are you getting your work done? It seems like you're not really understanding the material. Can we help you? Things like that. The other thing is, with the class online, you all are kind of out there as mysterious people. I get emails from you with quiz reflections, hopefully regularly. And, you're more than welcome to email me anytime you have a question. But in my experience of doing this for near 2 years now, I'm coming up on the 2-year mark of doing this class online. I found that I kind of lose touch with how well you're doing in the class until we come up to a midterm or the final. So with that being said, if you need help, I don't know that you need help. So it's really important for you to ask for help. I can look and see that your quiz grades are dropping, but I don't know if that's because you're just not putting in the effort and you got too much on your plate. And if that's the case, there's really nothing I can do to help. Or if it's like, hey, I'm really working hard and I just don't know what to study. I'm having a hard time and I'm trying to do everything I can. So you have to ask for help if you need it. I won't know if you need help unless you ask. So please ask for help. Remember, you can set up a Zoom meeting with me on those course resources at the bottom of the class page. Remember, down here at the bottom, you can just click on schedule a Zoom meeting with Danielle. That will take you to my calendar, and you can just, click on any day, click on any time, confirm. It'll have you put in your name and email. And if you want to, you can tell me the purpose for the meeting, schedule event, and it'll send us both an email, and it'll be in our calendars, and just super easy to do that way. Okay. You can also reach out to me by phone calls, text message, email, whatever works for you. I'm not always the best at answering my phone when it rings. I try as best I can, but sometimes I'm recording a video as I am now or something, and I can't always answer my phone. So texts or emails are probably better. But I do my best to answer phone calls too. If you call me and I don't answer, send me a text and let me know what you're calling about so I can call you back as soon as I can. Okay, so my expectations for the class, I have all these kind of rules. I'm telling you, okay, read the book, do this, do that. I want to let you know I'm what's called a pragmatist, and that means that I make rules for a purpose. There are no rules in this class that, I'm not one of those teachers that sits around and goes, how can I make their life miserable? Or how can I make this hard? Or how can I, it's all about how can I help them pass the National Registry exam? What are my successful students doing? And how can I help my students who are struggling pick up those life skills or student skills to be able to pass the class? So when you look back at my, okay, read the chapter, then watch the video, fill out the workbook, make note cards, study workbook, take the quiz, do reflections. That's what my successful students are doing. And that's why I'm suggesting it's what you do. So that's, you know, if you have a question about a rule, just ask me, hey, why do we have to do this? If you need an exception to a rule, just ask me. You know, I can't promise anything. It depends. Some stuff is, you know, non-negotiable because it's required by the state or things like that. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, you can do that. You know, if that helps you learn better, you can do that out of order or whatever it needs to be. So I'm willing to work with you, but I just, you know, reach out to me and ask. And if you're just wondering, why do we have to do this? You can ask and I'll tell you. I always have a reason. If I don't have a reason, I won't require it. So at some point during the class, you will be audited to make sure you're completing your guided notes workbook. So you want to make sure you're always keeping up with that. And also the groups that we're going to form when we have our Zoom meeting, I'm going to require your group to meet at least once a week. So we'll talk more about that in our Zoom meeting, but your group can decide when you meet, whether you're going to meet over Zoom or in person. If you're here local to Missoula, it might make sense to meet in person. And the last thing, and I do have this in all capital letters because I am yelling it, please read your emails. When you all are in the online class, I have no other way to get in contact with you, especially as a large group, other than to send you an email. I send very few emails. I know you've been getting a lot from me in the week leading up to the class with getting the account set up and remembering things I need to ask of you. It won't be like that throughout the class. Throughout the class, you know, you might get an email from me once a week, once every 2 weeks. You know, when it gets closer to the midterm, you might get 2 a week or something, but it's going to be really sparse. And when I send something, it's important. So try to read your emails, you know, at least once a day. If you're a person who checks your email all the time, great. If you're not, try to get in the habit of checking it once a day, whether that be first thing when you wake up in the morning or last thing before you go to bed, something along those lines, just so I'm not waiting more than 24 hours to get a response from everybody, because there are some times where I need something right away. Okay. So, you know, if you're in a regular classroom and you have a question, it's pretty simple. You just raise your hand and you ask the teacher as soon as you have a question, but it's not really like that. You're going to be watching a video and taking notes in your guided notes workbook, and a question's going to pop in your head, and me, the teacher, is going to be nowhere to be found in that moment. So I want to address, what do you do if you have a question in the middle of the class here? And I'll tell you the same thing I tell the in-person students. The first thing you need to do is just write your question down, whether it's on a scrap paper or whatever, because even in class, when I call on somebody, a lot of times by the time I get to them, they've forgotten what their question is. So as soon as you have a question, just write it down so you don't forget it, because I know you think you'll remember it, but when it's actually time, you may have forgotten it. So just write it down right away. Now, the ideal way to handle your questions is that when you meet with your group once a week, you ask your group at that point. Now, I'm not telling you that because I don't want to answer your questions. I'm telling you that because if you call me or email me and I answer your question, great, you learned something, hopefully. However, everybody in your group is not exposed to that material or that question or anything like that. A lot of students ask a lot of really good questions that gets other students thinking. So that's why I would rather you discuss it in your group, because that way you won't be the only one who benefits from that question, but everybody in your group can think through it and discuss it. And everybody will learn a little bit from it. And you'll learn a lot more by working through it with your group rather than me just telling you the answer. That being said, if it's going to be a long time before you meet with your group, maybe you just met yesterday and you're not meeting for 6 more days, or maybe you've met with your group and you still can't come to an agreement on an answer, I don't mind at all to answer questions. So feel free to get a hold of me. Again, phone calls, text message, or emails. Probably depending on the length of the question is going to depend on what the best way to reach me is. You can also set up a Zoom meeting with me. So, you know, don't be shy to ask me a question, but I do like you to ask those questions to your group first, just because I think everybody learns a lot more out of it that way. So now, aside from that, if there's a tech problem with the website, please take a screenshot of the problem you're having and email me or text me or call me as soon as possible, because if you're having a problem, I might have 40 or 50 other people that are about to have the same problem. So the sooner I can be aware there's an issue, the quicker I can try to get on there and try to figure it out. I do all my own website work for the most part. I do have one gentleman that helps me out if I need it, but you know, it's really important for me to get on it right away before it becomes an issue for everybody else, because we constantly have quizzes coming up and things like that. So we don't really have time for the tech to fail us. I've been pretty lucky so far over the last couple of years of somehow getting it to always work in a timely manner. So I think that's all I have for you as far as the class goes. You know, we'll be meeting over Zoom. And when we meet over Zoom, we'll talk about all the specific dates for when we're going to meet in person to do skills. and we'll talk about setting up your group and how your group's going to meet and everything like that. So just keep an eye out for any emails from me, and otherwise I'll see you all in Zoom pretty soon.